A few weeks ago, this musician, Father John Misty, who was formerly the drummer of Fleet Foxes, released this album, Pure Comedy. And whatever you think of this album musically, or if it's good or bad musically, the album sort of dwells on the idea of media and comedy and entertainment and sort of the possible issues inherent to the proliferation of really entertaining and engaging content. There's this line in the second song, betting Taylor Swift every night in the Oculus Rift, right? That his primary sexual experience, that his routine of his day is based around this fantasy, this 3D reality fantasy of having sex with a celebrity, right? And I think you get the idea why this is sort of problematic. That it's just sort of a standard sci-fi sort of topic brought up, like people like the that Pixar did in that Wall-E movie, where people are just sort of very heavily engaged with their technology, their social media, their sort of apps, their sort of computer gizmos that they're the sort of almost enslaved to, right? Just like this guy in this song is like sort of just very every single night he's just in this virtual world having his this very weird relationship with virtual reality, right? It's this idea that that things are getting so good technologically, that entertainment's becoming so good that we can sort of fall into this trap of becoming engaged with it and not engaging with other interesting things in the outside world. You see this in Wall-E, right, where they don't ever look up to see the pool or each other or something. This sort of cliche almost stuff, right? That we're looking down and texting too much. This sort of topical idea in today's society. But I bring up this issue because CS Summit ended last night, and as I was watching that event, I got fairly concerned just by the amount of people saying it was their favorite event ever, or this was one of their favorite events ever, or this was like besides the major, this was the majors, I should say, the Valve majors. This was their favorite event ever, or I just see the sheer volume of clips from the CS event, and not the gameplay of the event. Well, some of it's the gameplay of that, but mainly just like moments where someone says something funny or there's something interesting happening in the background of the stream. Someone does something funny. I actually think I saw two. I know I definitely saw two front page CS:GO subreddit posts from the same little video clip of Swag from Cloud9, the former, still currently banned iBuyPower player, just throwing up some sort of weird hand sign in the background of the stream, and that got clipped and put on the front page twice. This sort of very mildly funny event is somehow just extremely important. It's becoming irrelevant within the CS:GO subreddit that it got posted twice to the front page. I mean, I when I saw it, wasn't super high up. I don't know how high up it got. I wasn't tracking it super carefully, but or both clips super carefully. But I get concerned when I see stuff like that and just see the sheer volume of these funny moments on these social media platforms, whether it be Reddit or Twitter or whatever else, right? That there's this sort of engagement in entertainment in this CS Summit. And I'm not saying the CS Summit event was bad. It's a good change of pace. I think a lot of people liked it. I enjoyed it myself personally. But I get a little concerned when I just see just how popular it is. People saying how much they love the event when the competition, the level of Counter-Strike at that event itself is not actually that high. I mean, you had some decent teams there. You had Cloud9, you had Gambit, you had Liquid. Well, we haven't seen that Liquid team on LAN yet, so we're sort of curious to see how good that team was. It wasn't that great. Optic was formerly pretty good at the very end of 2016. They had a decent event with Jason RR. So some decent teams. SK, obviously a much better team, can be sort of in the contention for one of the better teams in the world. Maybe can't, I don't know if anyone would argue right now that they should be or could be the best team in the world. But, in that conversation, when I did that Counterpoints episode the other day, I think a couple people, I think maybe one. I don't remember specifically, but I think yeah, one or two people might have said of the four of us that SK should be, or they expected SK to be in the top four teams once sort of the dust settles and they sort of adjust their new lineup with Phelps. But I mean, it's we there's no Astralis, there's no FaZe, there's no G2, there's no Verse Pro, there's no Fnatic, there's no other sort of small. Oh, Navi is another good team that should be up there. There's no North. There's other sort of smaller teams that are, sort of could be in the mix. Should definitely be considered around sort of teams like Gambit, Cloud9, NIP, like Heroic and Immortals, sort of missing from that tournament as well. So we didn't see I don't think we saw the best competition at this tournament. I don't think we saw the best Counter Strike at this tournament. I hope I'm not saying anything controversial. I really don't think anyone would disagree. I hope no one would disagree with me on this topic because just the best teams, these super exciting teams in this sort of new era of these very strong super teams. They weren't. A lot of these teams weren't there at this tournament. We didn't see the best competition. They just didn't happen, right? To steal the Richard Lewis famous phrase, right? They're just the level of competition just wasn't there. It just didn't happen, right? So this concerns me that people are saying it's one of their favorite tournaments or the favorite tournament because that to me says that they value entertainment much more highly, or they value entertainment very very highly. Maybe even more so than the quality of the competition. If I thought the level of competition that the games at Starladder Season 3, this Starladder I-League Star Series Season 3, the super long name. Yeah, I thought that the level of competition was great there. I think the finals were really great. Now, there's some weird matchups. The Swiss didn't play out perfectly. There's some unlucky, I would say. The matchups didn't, just sort of unlucky combinations of teams in that fifth round of the Swiss, which led to some optimal playoff appearances by teams like CLG. And maybe you even want to argue that one like Hellraisers was given an easier schedule, while someone like SK was given too hard of a schedule. But yeah, anyway, there were some issues there, but I think the level of competition was very good Counter-Strike. And I think I enjoyed that event a lot, maybe just as much or probably more than the CS Summit event. So it concerns me. And, I'm not anti-entertainment. Like I said, I was just on that Counterpoints episode. I thought it was a highly entertaining show. It was very funny. I was very impressed to see what Moses and Thorin can do in person, so to speak. That when I'm in that conversation, how easily they sort of can make a funny, entertaining moment out of some innocuous comment. It's sort of very impressive to me. Who I was more bland of an episode in comparison. But yeah, I'm not against entertainment. I'm not saying that you shouldn't like this event. It was a good, change of pace. It was good. It was a different aesthetic. It was more laid back. It was more relaxed. It's different. I understand why people would like this a tournament, especially because it's very different from some of the more mainstream tournaments we've seen recently. I'm not begrudging those people. I just get concerned that we're moving towards this entertainment, this pure comedy, that too many of these very highly entertaining clips are going to become the norm, that they're going to create their own demand curve, that they're going to self-proliferate, that people watching these clips are going to want to see more clips like that, and that's going to lead to sort of more of the content on Twitter, what's popular on Twitter, what's popular on Reddit, what's popular elsewhere on social media, to just be this funny stuff, this entertaining stuff, and not interesting gameplay, not super cool clutches, and not super smart decision making leading to this great round. That I never see a clip where I see something really interesting happen where like the in-game leader will mind game or confuse the other team. I see maybe never is over an exaggeration. But these sort of interesting gameplay clips from a more macro perspective, not just seeing headshots or good 1v4 clutches, I don't see many of these on the subreddit either. So to see a lot of these clips from CS Summit, which was just funny things said on stream, some of those were very, very funny. It's not all these moments were just these mildly funny moments like we're talking about with Swag. Some of them, like the taco story, were very, very funny. But I get concerned just how much of it, and if it's getting too. I actually do think it's too much. You saw Lurpus last week saying something similar. He just thought there was too much bad content being filtered through his Reddit account via the CS:GO subreddit, so he had to unsubscribe, or he felt the need to unsubscribe. He didn't have to unsubscribe, but yeah, that he unsubscribed. And this is a guy who's been around for CS forever. Has a very engaging Twitter feed himself. He does his own interesting content still with written articles mainly. But yeah, no, it's concerning that someone that invested in the Counter Strike has actually got to unsub from the CS:GO subreddit. Reddit that to him, and I think I would almost agree with this. It's not filtering through the best content. It's not filtering through an even mix or a good mix of entertainment and analytics, like something present or something, something present and something like Counterpoints, where it's a good mix of analytics and entertainment and a show, but also talking about very interesting issues that about the game and about the balance of the game, what teams are good, why are they good, sort of a more engaging intellectual conversation. Maybe not intellectual, but yeah, I'll just say intellectual conversation. But this sounds pretty pretentious, I guess, especially because I was on the last episode, right? But yeah, you can talk about what's you can talk. Okay, so what would you do? Let's talk about what's the best. What I would suggest we do to sort of combat this. Just talking about the CS:GO subreddit, I would say something like what's going on in Overwatch right now. It might be interesting if you don't follow that at all. You haven't heard about this at all. Monte Cristo, who's a former LCK caster, which is a League of Legends Korean league. He was a part of that league for a long time. Was formerly OGN champions, I think, and they split up into seasons. But yeah. He was suggesting, he's also formerly the owner of Renegades, but now they're under new ownership. But yeah, he was suggesting that they actually change the rules of the subreddit to better encourage longer, more intricate content, less easily consumed content to sort of reach the subreddit, and sort of to cut back on how much of this easy to consume content, how many just these simple GIFs or GIFs or however you're supposed to say that, these sort of just streamable 30-second clips can reach the front page. And I actually don't remember specifically how he drew, if it was just through rules or through some sort of algorithmic change, but he's actually trying to do a petition, trying to influence the change to that subreddit, because he thinks, and I think it's a fair criticism, that it's just too much of these easily digestible clips. It's just a little bit of gameplay or a little funny moment, and it's not these engaging hour-long podcasts or 3,000-word articles, or just like a 1,500-word article, not 50,000, 1,500. I think, I think at the very lowest level, everyone agrees that there should be some sort of moderation. None of these major subreddits related to esports or video games just allow small, like just a meme and just with just text, like, top line of text and the punchline on the bottom line of text. They all sort of ban that. They know that's too low effort, and just because the way it's so consumable, that will inevitably reach the front page. Everyone agrees that there should be some sort of limit. Now, maybe someone like the League of Legends subreddit, or not, I shouldn't say something like the League of Legends subreddit, maybe it's gone too far and become too authoritarian and has tried to control what gets to the top of the subreddit, or what gets is allowed in the CS:GO subreddit. Maybe they've far too heavily controlled that, and they're being too authoritarian, they're being too strict, because there's these funny moments that sort of tangentially connected to League of Legends, but still sort of a part of it, that happen. Maybe those should be let through, and they just won't let it through because they're a very strict control, and maybe if you're very critical of them, just like all in their own self-interest, and they're very power hungry people, whatever criticisms people have made of the League of Legends moderators. But yeah, I think we can adopt some changes to the CS:GO subreddit. I think I think to naturally move the needle more towards a better balance of entertainment and analytics, or entertainment and gameplay. I would say the best way of defining the spectrum would be like information and entertainment. Information on one end and entertainment at the other end. I think we're too far towards entertainment at the moment. So we could change the actual rules of the subreddit to better affect a balance that's reasonable. Now, some people might argue, well, that the upvoter should be able to purely determine what gets to the top front or not. That should be completely of the free will of the community. It shouldn't be enforced by this sort of oligarchy of moderators or the elites or whatever political ideological terms you want to use to describe them, right? But yeah, I mean, yeah, I do think it's gone too far, and I worry that it's going to self-proliferate. But yeah, when you hear me say this, and I know this is a criticism of Monte Cristo too, that I'm obviously going to be a benefit because I, as a content creator myself, create not always super long articles, but I write like 1,500 plus word articles, and I make these videos that are 15 minutes plus. That they're not super entertaining at a very they're not super consumable, right? They're not 30-second clips. They're not 10-second clips. They're not me just saying something mildly funny or very funny in just in a short little time space. They're longer argumentative objects, pieces of media content, to use that sort of weird degrading word. It sounds like it sounds like hot dog components, right? Content, right? Yeah. But I am concerned about. I think the needle's gone too far, and I think maybe if you don't want to change the subreddit rules, maybe you think that's too authoritarian or whatever. Maybe just think about as a watcher of the show, what you share and what you upvote and what you consume, and try to and see and think for yourself. Maybe are we doing too much stuff? Am I watching too much stuff that's purely entertainment? Should I engage more in content that's engaging in a form of more cognitive, I guess that's a different way of saying intellectual, or more engaging mentally, rather than just watching a funny clip. Maybe that's an option. Maybe we some sort of petition, some sort of push to make the subreddit change, or but subreddit's only just a part of it. There's also Twitter, and that's sort of going to get proliferated, well, not proliferated, but clogged by these sort of funny moments rather than gameplay moments and intelligent content with that they can sort of clog up people's feeds. So maybe just think about. Maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you think there's no such thing as too much comedy, too much entertainment. Maybe you think that's a ridiculous notion, and I'm simply trying to skew the narrative to benefit myself. But I think this is a topic to think about, and I am sort of very seriously concerned that we are going too far in one direction. Maybe not. We're gonna be slaves to technology sort of concerns, but a real concern that sort of good content is going to be filtered out.